Hi, my name's Kevin McQuillan, and the following pre-recorded conversations are my attempt to make sense of the human experience through the practice of yoga. I hope you enjoy. Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm going to pull you up here. Come on up. You can keep your mats where they are. I'm going to be up here for a few minutes, have a conversation, we'll move into practice. Come on up. Let us gather together. Oh, what a showing. What a showing. Look at all these people. Ready to be twisted and turned and, I don't know, encouraged and challenged. Something like that this morning. You ready for that? All right. Thank you. A willing bunch. So if you don't know, this is how I often start classes. I just bring people up. I like to have a conversation, I like to see you, build a relationship with you, and then also introduce you to the theme of the class, the focus, why I'm teaching what I'm teaching, and why it's important to me. And ideally, it'll be important to you. And if it's important to you, you'll have some semblance of meaning. And that's good. That's worth having out in front of you. Otherwise, it's just like this hollow practice, aerobic experience, which is okay at times. This practice is deep, deep. And that's what I appreciate about this practice, is how deep it is. You know, accesses the various different bodies that we have. Physically, emotionally, cognitively, for sure. You could argue deeper than that as well. And so that's the idea, is that I introduce a theme, you relate to it, and find it in your life. You find it in your life. And today the focus is on side bodies. Ooh-wee, delicate. Side bodies. And you'll get a sense of your sensitivity of your side bodies. And why the side bodies this morning, you may ask? Well, let me tell you. We hold some experiences in the side bodies. We hold experiences in our body. And we hold specific experiences in our side bodies. And up on the board, the left side, and it's high on the left side, is we hold this experience of shame. Oh, what a riveting emotion that is, shame. And on the right side, we hold this experience of feeling not good enough, not good enough. And if you just think about those two experiences, that presupposition, the belief that you're not good enough, and how that evokes shame. And that's the tendency. What's up here infuses down here. And so what we believe, we become. And so if we have this belief that we're not good enough, and we do in your own unique way, your own unique language, from your own unique experience in life, how that informs the body. And the tendency is it's a shame-based experience. And the challenge with shame is it's punishing. If you've ever been shamed, perhaps you can relate to that. It's like a punishing experience. And if you've ever shamed yourself, and you have, it's a punishing experience. We can be so brutal with ourselves. And if you ever pause and just listen to how you speak to yourself, you'll get a sense of what I'm speaking about. We can be brutal and cutting to ourselves. And if that's the way in which we treat ourselves at times, and it is, just imagine how we treat other people. Could you even imagine how you treat people, other people, at times? And that's worth a pause at times, to look who's around you, and to really look into their eyes and to see how terrified they are of you. Because that's true. The people that are closest to you are terrified of you. Because the beast within pops out every once in a while. Is that a true statement? The monster within comes out. Yeah, you can't deny that. And if you do, you're simply naive. You're a beast. We all are in our own unique way, and when we do come out that way, wow, it's intense. And it's typically a shame-based experience. The monster comes out, becomes critical. You're a terrible person, and let me tell you how terrible you are. You didn't do the dishes. You showed up late. I don't know, you eat with your mouth open. It's like, I don't know. We can get hypercritical when shame comes to visit. And it is a challenge to work with. And through this practice, the idea is to understand where shame lives within you. And what's the source of your shame? So you can rid yourself of it as quickly as possible, because it's so devastating. Not only to this, our relationship to self and our character, but also to every other relationship that we're in. It will deconstruct a relationship very quickly, very quickly. And so when shame comes to visit, and if we're not responsible with it, we put everything at risk. Everything at risk. Everything we hold near and dear at risk. Because we become rigid and judgmental and sharp and unpleasant. That's the tendency. And if we become too rigid, at some point we'll break. And if you've ever broken, and you have, some way, or if you've ever witnessed somebody break, it is deeply unpleasant. It's the breaking of, in some ways, the soul. It's too much to bear, and we break. And so shame leaves us rigid and doesn't give us access to the things that we say we want. All the good things in life that we say we want. And so shame arises from feeling exploited. And that can happen every day, and it does. Feel like we're being treated unfairly. You don't have to go any farther than looking at your own relationship to you and how you treat yourself unfairly. That's true. It's likely it happened this morning already. You didn't treat yourself very kindly, unfairly. And what that does to you, it instigates embarrassment, disgrace, and humiliation. Think about that. Whoa, those are brutal experiences. I know those experiences well. That's how it felt for me when I think about how I grew up. It was a critical environment that I grew up in. That's how it felt to me. I'm not saying that was the case all the time, but that's how I experienced my household. It was critical. And I was being criticized. And being criticized is this experience over a span of time is like I can't do anything right. I can't do anything right. And so if I can't do anything right, I must be failing. If I'm failing, I must not be enough. And if I'm not enough, then who's going to want to spend time with me? Who's going to want to do that? If I'm this walking failure that can't keep up, can't do enough, can never accomplish anything worthwhile, and that is deserving of encouragement. And when I think about that, it stings, and it still stings today. And so one of the strategies that I adopted very young was I just spend time with myself. I'd wander off and God knows where. A wee little tyke. Wee little Kevin with his bowl cut. Wandering around the neighborhood just on my own. Because I didn't want to be with people, because people were a source of humiliation for me. Were a source of humiliation. And so I chose to be on my own more often than not. Any time I could spend on my own, I would do it. And I lived like that for a long time. I didn't have the capacity to be with people for a long time. I couldn't bear being seen. I wouldn't allow it. I wouldn't allow people to see me. And I was masterful at it in so many different ways. Whatever I needed in the moment to make sure somebody wasn't seeing me, I'd take that opportunity. Because what I was so concerned about was feeling humiliated. It was so soul-crushing. And I developed this weakened state, that I was weak, consistently weak, constantly punishing myself. You are a terrible person. That person thinks you are, this person thinks you are that. And I convinced myself that I was that. And it was a heavy load to bear, extremely heavy. And we all know what that feels like. It evokes self-deprivation and self-deprecation. We deprive ourselves of good things. You don't deserve good things, so you will not get good things. You don't deserve water. You don't deserve food. You don't deserve, pursuing good things. And so we can deprive ourselves of a whole host of different things in a shame-based experience. And we self-deprecate, we punish ourselves, and we're brutal at it. And if you're honest with yourself, you get a good sense of how brutal you are. And what that does to you, and how that shapes you over a span of time. These are the things that wake you up in the middle of the night and will haunt you, for sure. It's like, hey, it's me. I just came to slap you again. It's time to wake up. And that's how it feels. And so if this practice grips us, that's how we become rigid, because we're not taking care of ourselves. We have no access to self-care. And I didn't have practices around self-care. Certainly I didn't. I deprived myself. I was cold in various different ways. If I had a decision, it's like I could choose comfort or being uncomfortable. I would constantly choose being uncomfortable because that's what I felt I deserved. And what that manifests into is a strategy to perfect. The strategy to perfect. If I perfect, then I won't be criticized. And the tendency is to focus on things. And a shame-based experience is focusing on being good at things. Something. Give me something good. Or give me something to focus in on so I can perfect it. I don't know, writing a paper. I don't know, fixing a radio. I don't know, your work. Whatever. The tendency is to perfect and to focus on being good at things. And solely focused on being good at things. I'm going to mow this lawn perfectly. So none of my neighbors will criticize my lawn. Or whatever it may be. And so that's how the strategy manifests through shame, is we become the perfectionist. And you could ask yourself, well, am I a perfectionist? And ideally, the answer is yes, you are. In some fashion, you are. Somewhere in your life, you are the perfectionist. And what you abandon to be the perfectionist, it's intense. And what we typically abandon to be the perfectionist is relationships. That's the tendency. You're less important than this. You are less important than this thing. And that's the trap for perfectionists. They have very little attention on relationships, people, in some fashion, and they have more attention on perfecting things, which doesn't bode well for relationships. And so as the perfectionist, we can be hyper-aware of what's happening around, and where are the sources of concern, and where can I be criticized, and ultimately humiliated. And best, I source those issues as quickly as possible, and make it so that that won't happen. That's the tendency. And if I can't do that, I will leave that. I'll leave the job. I'll leave the relationship. I'll leave the town, the state. I'll leave my family. Whatever it takes, we'll cut out at some point. If that's the source of criticism that leads into humiliation, that supports this shame-based experience. It drives us in various different ways. And so perfectionists seek recognition, and they attempt to control in an effort to feel safe. That's the tendency. I don't feel safe. I want to take control of this, so I am calling the shots. And so I'll be safe in that. You ever gone on a vacation with a perfectionist? Holy snap. It's like the printed itinerary. This is going to be perfect, and best that you like it. Because if you criticize my itinerary and this beautiful thing I've created, I will punish you. So best you shut up and enjoy yourself. And that can be the posture of a perfectionist. There's a rigidity around it, and it sucks the joy out of anything because we're so attentive on making it perfect. Perfect to this, not perfect to anybody else, because it's too rigid. And the idea is to relate to this conversation, because you are that somewhere. You are this somewhere, and you're sucking the life out of something. Maybe it's an individual. Maybe it's your work. I don't know, but it's somewhere. And it's worth paying attention to so you can stop doing it as quickly as you can. Because it's not good for you, and you know that. And so the integration for perfectionists is collaboration and intimacy, which is frickin' horrifying. What? I gotta collaborate with you? You're probably gonna fuck it up. It's likely, and quite likely, you're gonna mess this up and not do it right. And so that's the tendency of perfectionists. I'll do it because you're gonna mess it up. And that's how we keep people small and weak around us. We don't give them the opportunity. We just don't. We take it away from them. We take it away from them. We take it away from them. And that is what these strategies are designed to do. To keep people small and weak around us. Because when shit hits the fan, we can crush them. And if you ever see yourself in an argument, when your arrogance and righteousness comes out and the monster presents itself, it's all about crushing your opponent. And these strategies will always present that side of you. The monster will come out. This is the trap. And so if you can see the trap you've placed yourself in some area of your life, encourage yourself to move into it. Collaborate, create intimacy, change the environment. And the only way we can do that is to change this environment. That I can back off some. I don't need to be so rigid and judgmental and sharp. I want to collaborate, support people, give them an opportunity to be themselves, to empower other people. That's the way out, which is nothing easy about that. Because what's always waiting there is failure, and then criticism, and then humiliation, and lodging into this feeling and experience of not being good enough. But it's worth taking the risk. And so through this practice, side body practice, there's a lot to move. There's a lot to move, and worthwhile moving. You move this, you can move these, your relationships. And you're in a lot of relationships, a lot. And what that would mean for you and your relationships in your future. It's the way through, it's the way out, and it's the access point you're waiting for. Pick up the challenge. What lives in this is vulnerability, the very thing we need more of, not protection. Vulnerability strengthens, it does not weaken. These strategies, this strategy, perfectionism, weakens. Weakens, weakens, weakens. And that is how it keeps us in control. So blow through that today, this morning, through practice. You ready for that? You relating to this? Make sense? I'm going to ask you a question, because I like to hear from you. What's your greatest source of shame in your life currently? It's a hell of a question. What is your greatest source of shame in your life currently? I'll give you an example for me. The greatest source of shame in my life has been women. And that started very young. And that's something I carried with me and consistently gets reinforced. You could say every day. Which has nothing to do with blame. I'm not blaming anybody. I play a significant role in that, obviously. But for me, that is the greatest source of shame in my life, is the attempt to be in relationship with women, which is terrifying. But also so brilliant. So brilliant. And that attempt has given me access to the very things that I say I want in life. It's happened through women. So it's like facing the dragon so I can be triumphant in various different ways. And that's how I've taken it on. And there's been a lot of reward in all of that, and tremendous pain too. So what is your greatest source of shame? Make this real for you. Move yourself along. Break yourself up. That's what this practice is about. Break yourself up. Encourage yourself to fall apart. Let a piece of you fall away, die. Do that this morning. All right, everybody. Pleasure to be with you. We're going to hit the mat. As you do, bring yourself to your back.